Good afternoon. Good late afternoon, everyone. My name is Luis Imbert, and welcome to another great talk. With me is Alexis Kong. She is gonna be some interpretation services for this talk. And if you see on your Zoom screen a little glove, you would like to receive that support, feel free to click on it. Great talks today, as title is Charging Latinx Communities. What does a just transition to clean energy looks like for Latinx communities? The purpose, right, of these talks and webinars is to bring together leaders from renewable energy field and environmental justice movement to discuss clean energy access and community-centered solutions. And I want to thank you all again for joining us today. Another purpose, right, with these seminars is that we are seeking to amplify the voices of GRID's communities and share the stories, experiences, and work creating mission and impact, along with systemic changes. Allow me to introduce again, my name is Luis Imbert for those that are joining, right? My name is Luis Imbert, and I'm the Development and Communications Specialist at Grid Alternatives Bay Area. Thank you for joining us today. Couple of more logistics and items, right, to keep in mind. The webinar will be recorded and available, right, for rewatch if you want to revisit some topics or ping some specific items that will be discussed. You are more than free to rewatch and obviously share it, right, through whoever you think might be a good use or benefit from this conversation. Also a reminder that your video and audio are automatically muted, but keep in mind, right, that you can add comments to the chat, ask questions on the questions and answers, or the Q&A section of this Zoom call, and be sure to submit those questions so our panelists will be addressing them, answering them. We will try to also, right, ask as many as possible of those questions, mostly at the end, with 15 minutes left of these 60 minutes, 1 hour seminar. Well, it's probably wait for 1 more minute, right? So I can go ahead and introduce our two panelists. For those that are joining, I want to mention again that we are having an interpretation service. Fabulous Alexis Kong. You might probably see her talking, or little frame. She's there. She's providing translation for this webinar. Make sure that you are clicking on the interpretation button. It looks like a glove. Thank you everybody for introducing or sharing where you're sitting and your names. Thank you. And I will go ahead, right, as we see time's coming to the 10 minutes mark of this call. I would like to introduce our two panelists. Let's start right with Andrea Marpillero Colomina, Sustainable Communities Program Director from Green Latinos, and Ruben Montoya, GTC Community Engagement Coordinator from Grid Alternatives, Greater Los Angeles, GLA. Hello, Ruben. Hello, Andrea. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Luis. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here.
We'll also proceed, right, to share a little of the overview or this webinar, seminar session, this great talk. It's in honor of our Latinx Heritage Month from earlier this month. And we are here to talk about what people's first solutions are needed to ensure a clean energy future that is equitable and sustainable for Latinx families and individuals. Probably many of you guys attending, might be aware or, learning more about the Inflation Reduction Act. With this act being passed, this legislation coming into law last year, around $500 billion are being put available to spend, right? And tax breaks as well, that are aiming to boost clean energy projects and incentives across the U.S. With this significant event, right, we wanted to host Latino leaders working in environmental justice to discuss how Latinx communities can benefit from this historical bill, and what steps and actions are needed to execute community-first solutions. So today, we are here to understand why Hispanic, Latino, Latinx populations are installing, a current rate of 30% lower than other minority groups, and why do they also pay 20% higher energy bills than the median family in the United States? What solutions can our experts experience in real time, right? And what can we do to make sure our community isn't left behind? But before, we start the discussion, a really fantastic topic, let's have each of our panelists, introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about their current roles, how they, started in this industry, what led them, to be here today with us. And, obviously, we would like to thank for sharing their journey with us. Let's start with Andrea.
Thanks so much, Luis, for that warm welcome. My name is Andrea Marpilero Colomina, and I'm the Sustainable Communities Program Director at Green Latinos. And Green Latinos is a member-based organization that seeks to advocate for the environmental and conservation priorities of Latino communities. In my work as the Sustainable Communities Program Director, most of my advocacy focuses on infrastructure and the role that clean infrastructure can play in improving the livelihoods of Latino communities and helping to mitigate the harms from pollutants. So, in this context, the positive role that clean energy production and access can play in improving the livelihoods of Latinos. I work with GridX we work together as part of with Grid Alternatives. We work together as part of the Solar Access Coalition. So we're a wide range of organizations that are advocating to improve solar access for all communities, and in particular for the communities that have been historically marginalized, left behind, and not included in clean energy opportunities and programs. And so that's what brings me here today. I'm really excited to be here in conversation with Luis and Ruben, and I'm looking forward to everyone's questions. I'm going to just drop into the chat just a fact sheet about the Green Latinos Sustainable Communities Program, just in case anybody's interested in learning more.
Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate it. Thank you for sharing the information sheet. Ruben, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ruben Montoya. I'm a community engagement coordinator here at GRID. I am pronounced as him, his. Okay. And I've been with Grid for a year and a half almost. I started as a volunteer for 4 years prior to that with Grid as well. I believe in their mission. I love their cause, and I believe in what they're trying to accomplish and how they're trying to impact disadvantaged communities and leave them with a better position. As far as savings with their bills, and then at the same time helping the environment through, energy saving and our systems helping the pollution. What I do is basically I reach out to community. I engage with the community and work with local partners and try to synergize efforts into helping communities and putting them in better positions, giving them resources that they can utilize. A lot of these times in our Latino communities, we're so insulated that we don't know our resources. We don't know what we have available. And sometimes we can, just by a little extra effort, we can get into a way better position or a better situation. That's basically what we do. I'll stop there because then I'll keep going.
Thank you, Ruben. I appreciate all the amazing work that you did. Thank you for, having that such a community mindset. Appreciated that you're part of Great Alternatives. Well, that being said, wonderful to have you both here. And, I would like to just probably prompt this conversation, right, with one question, both of you. Feel free to jump in, whoever, right? But with these ones, right, we're looking to expand a little bit more, right, on the specifics of the work that you guys are doing. So I will start, right, opening with perhaps whoever would like to jump in first, right, is what is the scope of your work, right, at your organization, and why it's essential that we focus on the intersection of Latino, Latinx community and environmental justice. Anybody would like to start first? Or I can voluntarily, right? Signal somebody. Let's see. Let's start with Andrea.
Sure. Where are there not intersections? I think, the question, right, environmental justice for Latino communities means so many different things, right? It means having access to clean water. It means having access to fresh air, to places to play, to trees, to our public lands. It means having, access also to transportation, to take us to school, to take us to the doctor, to connect us to our communities. That's all, important pieces of our mental health and our capacity to participate meaningfully in our communities, and feel good about ourselves and feel empowered and feel healthy and be able to make healthy choices. I think specifically when it comes to clean energy, right, we know that Latino communities are disproportionately impacted by polluting infrastructure. We know that Latinos pay about overall, 20 to 30% more than the average American household for their energy, while also being disproportionately impacted by fossil fuel consumption to create that energy. So, there's a lot to unpack, and like Ruben, I'll stop myself so that you can keep asking questions and I'm just not throwing a bunch of information at folks. But I think it's really important to think about clean energy in the context of all of the other pieces of environmental justice and how important it is for communities to be able to access clean energy and the power really that clean energy can have to improve our livelihoods on an everyday basis in ways big and small.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrea. Ruben?
Yeah, so to start with my type of work, I'm really boots on the ground. I get to actually meet the people that we impact. one of the things that we do a lot is try to educate people about solar energy, about how it is important, how it is affecting their communities, and why these communities tend to have a higher density of pollution, right? And at the same time, what can they do about it? How can they improve it? And not only that, we also help them financially. How? By offering free solar system at no cost, basically, right? And we also do have another model, which is we help the community through job training. We get them into a second path. It's a 13-week program, and it's a paid program. I think that circles in with the community and the impact that we do within this disadvantaged communities, right? And we're really trying to do something positive, and this is the way that we can impact them. One of the obstacles that we see lately is that since COVID, it's hard to relay the message to these communities because they've been victimized due to malpractices, whether it's online or even door knocking at a boot level. So this is one of the things that education and getting them out and being part of something that is going to impact the climate and benefit them as well. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Ruben. Yeah, so it's crucial to have these, items in top of our minds. And Ruben, I would like to probably deep dive a little bit more in the particularities of your job. Could you share with us, for those that are, not as familiar as California residents, right, about Pacoima, California, and if you could share, some of the background of this neighborhood that you've been like working, supporting, right, and how great it's doing there.
Well, Pacoima is one of the oldest neighborhoods in San Fernando, right? And they produce a lot of talent. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Danny Trejo, Senator Alex Padilla. He has family in that neighborhood. Um, so it's a family-oriented neighborhood. They're very close-knit. Okay. Most of the constituents there, or the people that live there, they live within walking distance of each other as a family as well. You find that a lot. They're very close knit. So any little thing that happens, the word spreads out quickly there, or not, depending on what kind of impression you make on them. The city, they're very proud that they're doing a little bit of gentrification. Most of the population is 90% Latino there. So we're rooted there. And the one thing is that we're trying to help them with is clean that air and make it better for them. And then at the same time, try to save them, wherever on the bills.
Awesome. Thank you, Ruben. So from what you have been able to experience and see, what are some of those lessons, right, that you could share with our audience this day, right, on how community-centered solutions could benefit the Latino or Latinx community?
Yeah. So one of the obstacles has been distrust, and the way we trying to address that is we're trying to change our practices a little bit. We're tweaking it because this particular community, the culture, myself included, is nothing's for free, right? Nothing's for free. So, and then with all these businesses that they're predators on this type of communities. They do bad practices, so they leave a bad taste on their mouth next person around. that is trying to do some good, which makes my job a little bit difficult, even though I'm giving these things away, right? So with that in mind, what I've done to address that a little bit is I started a small committee with the people that we're assisting with, and this is all volunteer based. And they believe in the mission. Why? Because they've been impacted in a positive way. We've done some positive work, so it validates our work at the ground level, and it helps communicate and educate other people as well. Just because if you get to this neighborhood, you will find a lot of bad things have happened. So it's very hard for them to trust anybody. So you really got to go in there and basically rub shoulders, you know, and and rightfully so. This is owning a home and jeopardizing that, is one of the biggest things that we do in life, right?
Right.
It's probably the most expensive thing that we do, the
It's a
home,
milestone. Yeah.
right? And for them to jeopardize it or anything, to kind of put them in a bad situation, they're very protective, and rightfully so,
Yeah.
because they a lot of us have been victims of bad things. So that's what I've done. I'm trying to, with this work and with the people that we're impacting, it's starting to get a little momentum, right? COVID wasn't, it was a small obstacle, just because it was hard for them
Yeah.
to open the door. So we had to get creative on how to communicate and how to educate, the community. And that's basically when I came in. So I came into a whole bunch of door closed,
Yeah.
and but now that everything's opening up, everything's on the up and up, and people are open. They're starting to come out and they're starting to be a part of something. This community has been very proud of who they are, right? And when something good happens, they support it, and we're starting to see that little by little. But like anything, it's gonna take time to multiply.
How laborious was for you to get in order that committee, Ruben?
Say that again.
How hard or difficult was for you to get, that committee going, the volunteer committee?
Um, it wasn't hard. It was just them trusting me, um, me understanding a little bit of their situation, being open to listen, and address their concerns. Um, Yeah, but it took a while. It took a while, but then once they believe in it, they support it, and that's why it's a volunteer base. You know,
Yeah.
uh, they believe in the mission, and that's why they volunteer. Because once they understand and see the vision, and they want to be a part of something good, then we do commit as a Latino person. Like
Culture
myself.
speaking. Yes. Thank you for highlighting that, Ruben. Um, Andrea, after hearing a little bit of this, interesting journey, Ruben's journey, his immersion and compromise and, work, from your perspective at Green Latinos, what are some policies, in the advocacy level that, Green Latinos has been working or is looking to work, right? And if you could highlight, right, the relevancy or the importance of this work.
Sure. I mean, first I want to just give a moment to uplift something that Ruben said, which is the fact that there's a lot of community mistrust in Latino communities for good reason, about new programs that promise to for example, allow or facilitate investments in solar installation of solar panels or other access to clean energy. And that's for really good reason, because as Ruben said, many Latinos unfortunately have been victims of, scams or promises and products that didn't benefit, including those that were proposed and sold, as it were, to them by policymakers and by government entities. So this is not something that is like a paranoia that's unwarranted. The other challenge that is incredibly important, I think, to acknowledge is language access, right? The fact that if you've got monolingual Spanish-speaking household, or you've got a Spanish-speaking household where the people who speak English are children, as is often the case in first-generation Latino households, where the children are translating, the children are sort of the navigators, right, in much of the English-speaking world. That can get complicated when you're talking about something like utility bills. That can get that adults can barely navigate their utility bills.
Yeah.
So, that is something that I think is incredibly important. And it's something that we think about certainly in the kinds of policies that we endorse at all levels. And I would say particularly at the federal level, when we look at proposed legislation or proposed policy by the executive branch, and we'll talk later about some of the stuff that's come out as a result of the IRA, but we look to make sure that, number one, there are, wherever relevant and possible, language access provisions included. That's incredibly important, because if the purpose of new programs that are going to enable more households to have clean energy infrastructure and resources accessible to them is to reach those most vulnerable households, then they better be in their language, right? And not only in their language, but in accessible level of language, right? Most people read at an 8th grade reading level or below, and we're talking about really technical things here. And so it's really important that people really are able to understand what they're signing themselves up for. And part of the work that we do at Green Latinos as a convener is we convene our members, and we convene some of the, the other organizations that we work with, so that people feel like they're informed about what these programs are and how they can truly benefit their communities, right? So we try to have multiple points of entry. One is directly with policymakers, where we're like, hey, does your bill or proposed policy or program have the pieces of it that we think are necessary to actually make it equitable? And B, talking directly with our members, and the majority of our members are environmental and conservation professionals, who are working in their communities. So Green Latinos is not a grassroots organization, nor is it a grass tops organization. It's sort of like a grass middle organization, where we're sort of trying to connect people doing work on the ground in community-based organizations to sort of a larger network of resources and represent them at tables where they may not necessarily have time or a way to get to that table. But what we do in our relationships with community-based organizations is we really try to hear them out, and we really try to make sure that folks that are working in communities, those organizations themselves, who are often much more trusted ambassadors or consultants when new government programs come onto the scene, communities ask the community organizations in their communities, right? They ask the people who they know and they trust, and they can see face to face, and they can call, and who they see at a street fair, and they see at a healthcare sign up, and they see at these different contexts that are relevant and important to their everyday lives. We make sure that the folks working in those organizations also feel like they know enough about the programs to rightfully advise people in the direction that we think they should go.
Amazing, Andrea. Yes, thank you for highlighting in those specifics, 2 points. And taking advantage of like the flow that you have, I would like to ask you how these policies, right, intersect with the IRA, and how could they influence, like decisions on a federal level?
It's a great and a really important question. And I'll preface this by saying that although I'm I tend to be a skeptic, I am actually a great optimist of the IRA, in particularly when it comes to clean energy programs. So the Inflation Reduction Act, which was passed last summer, so not summer 23, it's summer 22, right, created a bunch of different clean energy programs that I really believe can be great opportunities for investment in Latino communities. the key really here is making sure that our communities know about and have access to these programs and understand the conditions and the parameters of these programs and how they can benefit them. So for example, one thing I'll elevate is the low income bonus credit, right? Which is the tax credit, which is to be implemented by Treasury and the DOE, the Department of Energy. The credit supports solar and wind projects. And in some cases, applicants can be eligible to get 50% of the project costs back, which is huge. And this can be like an amazing thing for community solar projects and for other small energy output facilities. So folks that are going to be contributing zero emissions energy to the grid. And another is the greenhouse, which I'm sure everybody on this call has talked about and thinks about all the time. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, right, which is a $27 billion investment, right? And this, the GGRF is broken into those three separate buckets, right? The National Clean Investment Fund, which is $14 billion, the $7 billion Solar for All competition, and the $6 billion Clean Communities Investment Accelerator. And these programs are all different points of entry for nonprofits, for community-based organizations, for municipalities that can use these monies to seek to improve to invest and improve access to clean energy for Latino communities. And this is really a wonderful and unprecedented, obviously, investment in clean energy technology infrastructure and making it accessible to communities and really putting the money at the most localized level possible to sort of successfully address, the point that I think Ruben and I were trying to get to before, that there's a lot of distrust here. So government bodies coming in and saying, hey, there's a bunch of money available. That's not going to do it for a lot of people. The money needs to flow through at the local level so that the bodies administering and receiving the money are bodies that local community members trust.
Yeah. Well, such a critical information, that you're highlighting here, how that is bridged. Great to hear that there is all this support, there is this funding. Now let's try to build that bridge. Thank you. So I have a question regarding that, probably on top of your head, Andrea and Ruben. What does a just transition, after hearing this, right? What does a just transition to clean energy, can look or, should look like for Latinx communities? And feel free to start in order. Ruben, you want to go? Andrea?
Do you mind I had a glitch. Do you mind repeating?
Yes. Mostly the question, right, is what does a just transition to clean energy look like for Latinx communities?
Okay, I'll start since you mentioned me. The transition, right? I think education is big. The programs are great, okay? But right now, as you know, we're going through a transition of inflation as well. So how are people adjusting to that, right? In the ground level, a lot of them have to figure out how to make that work because they have a mortgage, they have, insurance, they have all these expenses, and it's really hitting home. And these programs came in and they're definitely helping. Yeah. But are we doing everything that we can? Because now what I'm finding out on the ground is people are resilient and they'll find a way to overcome these obstacles because they run into hardships, right? The income doesn't grow as much as inflation lately. And so what I'm finding out is most of these homes or homeowners, what are they doing to survive? They're doing their own additions, which creates problems when we have these programs. Why? Because everything needs to be up to code, and most of these times, because they're DIYers or do-it-yourselves, these obstacles are real. They qualify on paper, just on numbers, but once it comes to the property, this is an obstacle that I face a lot, especially in my community that I work in. You know, they're trying to survive. And we also have the issue of housing, you know, so hand at hand, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that I would like to see maybe for, you know, policymakers is to just go a little bit deeper, because understand that inflation does affect people and they have to be creative. And I'm not saying build the whole thing for them, but just make it easier for them to kind of create roads where they can, you know, they can have as a resource for income. Because let's face it, you know, to grow your income on the current market right now is very hard, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, and I understand doing a policy is after the fact, after all the damage has been done, right?
Yeah.
And but that's one thing, you know, with these programs that I'm noticing I would like to see. And you know, and I would like to see for my community, and to help them out and put them in a better situation, is that help facilitate putting things up to code, or you know, at a local level. I understand that building and safety is still critical, you know, as far as what I'm concerned about, you know, but there has to be a way, you know, to help out these homeowners, help put this home up to code, so that way we can have a bigger impact in the community.
Yeah. And Andrea, you know, Jose, Ruben, sorry for that, Ruben. Ruben's answer is definitely, you know, super helpful in prompting you different challenges, you know, to try to address like the section of that question, right? A just transition.
I mean, a just transition for clean energy, right? You know, is making sure people have the power in the energy sense, but also the power to make choices and the knowledge available to choose clean energy, right? But this is like, so I cannot stress this enough. Like, people need to feel like they are making choices and they understand what those choices are, how they work, what their benefits are, right? That they will cause them to pay less for utilities, that they're better for the environment, right? That they're lessening the impact of pollutants in the environment for them and for their children and for generations that will come after them. And potentially even, right, you know, and something we haven't really talked about much yet is that there's a growing and available clean energy sector for people to work in, right? And that should also be available, and that should be made clear to Latino communities that this is not something that is happening to you, that you have no power over and you have no role in being a part of, but that you could also work in the clean energy sector, become an expert in clean energy yourself. And I think, you know, clean energy jobs, you know, have the potential to be great jobs, really well-paying jobs that have, you know, a ladder climbing potential. And I think that that's incredibly important, because for, you know, a just transition is not only an environmental transition, it's an economic transition.
Yes.
And, you know, and these are all, you know, pieces of the same thread. And I think what's incredibly important is just making sure that people know what's out there and understand what these choices are and really how they benefit them and can be made available to them.
Thank you, Andrea. Shameless plug, how Ruben described, right, the other model that as great as an organization, you know, has been trying to put out there the job training aspect, and connecting how Andrea is describing the participation. It's looking at these possibilities in a newer, you know, not as new, but like this other industry, right, which is the clean energy industry, where you are able to be actively, you know, be involved and surrounded by those impacts that you know, conveys within it, being in that industry. Almost getting there. I would just like to have two more questions, right, for both of you. And you know, mostly it's directed, these are directed to you a little bit more on the personal level. So I will definitely like to directly ask these ones. So Andrea, looking back on all your work, what are you the most proud of? And definitely, right, with that current present perspective, would you able to share a little bit more on the future outlook? Like what are you looking forward in the future? So two things, right, for both Ruben and Andrea. What are you most proud of, and what are you looking forward for the future in your current role?
What am I most proud of? I mean, it's such a hard question. I think we've been really proud at Green Latinos of our ability and our growing capacity to really bring voices to the table and represent voices at the table that have not historically been heard, including, for example, tables that we have not been at ourselves. So this summer, for the first time, the Department of Treasury held a series of conversations about how to better how to better understand the needs of Latino communities when it came to the creation of tax credits and other programs that promote the clean energy transition. And we were fortunate enough to be at that table and to be able to meet with Treasury directly and say, excellent, like, hey, this way that you've been talking about these credits, the way that these credits work, or the way that this program has been rolled out doesn't really work for people, or like this works for people, but we'd like to see more of it. And I think like that's the most important work that we can do, is just making sure that we are at the table. I was on a panel yesterday about something else, and one of the other panelists said, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I thought that was a really interesting saying, right? Like you have to be present and you have to be advocating for your priorities and letting people know what your priorities are, or else you're going to get eaten up, right, by other people's priorities and by the direction that things take that may not necessarily have your best interest in mind, whether that be intentionally harmful to you, or whether that just be like a lack of awareness and a lack of understanding of where a community's needs are.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for trailblazing and highlighting a relevancy in being in that table or on those tables. And what are you looking forward for in the future?
Well, what I'm looking forward to, of course, is a clean energy, zero emissions future for all of us. And I do think it's achievable. I do, we're in a really challenging, to say the least, political climate right now in terms of getting things done at the federal level. But I think the IRA was sort of a beacon of light. And I think there is real potential for these programs to take off and have really meaningful impact on communities across the country. And I think we just need to keep uplifting and elevating our voices, the voices that have been unheard, and making sure that we have space at the table and are not on the menu.
Let's put ourselves in the menu. Thank you, Andrea. Ruben, please, what are you most proud of, and what are you looking forward to in the future?
What I'm most proud of is our mission, and the way we're looking to impact the community. We help on clean air. We also help them economically through the savings of the clean air, and just building the bridges, talking to people and being able to network with other resources and connect them as well. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we tend to be shielded from all these informations. Why? Because as a culture, we don't trust. There's a lot of distrust. So opening these doors, opening these resources, makes me proud, because I'm trying to impact the community in a positive way, and every life that I impact in a positive way, it's my cleansing, if you would. It feels good, right?
Yeah.
And I do it. Maybe I'm selfish, but that's why I do what I do. I'm trying to impact people in a positive way.
Thank you, Ruben. And last great part is, what are you looking forward to in the future with this work?
I'm looking forward to the agenda that we have with the clean air movement. You know, we do need it. We're starting to see the aftermath of all the smog, all the pollutions, right? So improving that, the commitment that we have to see it through, all the way through to the finish line, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
It's gonna take some work. It's gonna take commitment. There's a lot of bumping and bruising because not everybody's happy, but it's something that we need and something that is gonna benefit everybody.
Thank you. Thank you both. We have 10 minutes left for this amazing conversation. I want to thank you, both of you, for your time, for your insight, for your knowledge and experiences. Thank you so much. And we'll move on some Q&A, so some questions, and hopefully we have to, answer them. So I have here one that was flagged right to my attention is particularly for Ruben. How many homes have you installed solar systems on the LA area through grid? Do you also install for apartment buildings? And if you can afford to buy a home in LA, it's not often possible to qualify as low income.
I don't have the exact number. I know we've done a lot, okay? But as far as doing apartment buildings, as far as we know, I don't have a program where I work in my little district there. But there are programs available. If you connect with us, we will try to point you the right way. But yeah,
Awesome.
we're there to help.
Thank you, Ruben. We have a question for you, Andrea. How do you recommend getting Latino, Latinx communities at the table?
Well, if it's your table, invite them. And if it's somebody else's table, and you notice that there are no Latino organizations at the table, or as often happens to us, we're the only Latino organization at the table, point that out, right? And make noise, make a big deal out of it. Generally, I believe people are acting in good faith, and they often make oversights that they don't intend to make. And so I think just pointing that out to them, right? Yes. And also, something that we do and we try to do is say like, yeah, we're a voice of, representing Latinos, but we're not the only voice, and we may not represent all Latinos. So don't assume that just because we're here, we're talking for, millions of people, right? And then I think the other thing that's incredibly important is, if it's you, regardless of whether it's your table or somebody else's table, you have to make the table accessible. So like, is translation being provided? And is it professional interpretation and translation? Because often, like, what people will do is they'll just have like their Spanish speaking employee try to translate on the fly for people that need the translation. And like, that's not helping really anybody. And the poor employee is there like scrambling, trying to figure out how to say these technical terms in Spanish. And then also making sure that the table is happening in a place and at a time of day that's accessible to people, right? Is this happening at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday? Okay, who's not going to be there? Every single mom, right? Anybody who works at night, and is childcare being provided, right? Like all of these pieces are crucial to having a truly equitable and inclusive table. And also there has to be outreach to let people know that these tables exist, because often conversations are happening, particularly about policymaking, that just don't include people, and people aren't showing up and aren't making sure that their voices are being heard because they just simply don't know that the conversation is happening. So I think all of that is essential, and I appreciate the question. Thank you.
Great question. I have one more question for Andrea. Andrea, you mentioned clean energy jobs. What are some ways to get the Latino community working in this sector?
Well, I mean, I think one of the greatest points of entry for clean energy jobs is through community college. So letting community colleges know that those clean energy jobs exist and encouraging them to let their students know about them, and possibly having some kind of career fair or or opportunity like that. Obviously, that's one point of entry. I think another point of entry is just, depending on the context, right? If this is a community that, for example, is getting, some IRA money to start a community solar program, thinking about from the beginning, right? What are the opportunities in that new program investment that include the potential for community-based jobs, right? And then growing that, and then showing people, okay, this IRA money is coming in, and this could meet, this is, we can hire 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever, technicians, customer support specialists, whatever, right? So I think that's incredibly important too. And then another thing is just like holding utilities and holding government bodies accountable. The more local level, the better, right? If a city is going to be installing a bunch of solar panels, who are they hiring to do that, and what is that contracted company's practice, right? Is it a woman and minority owned business? Do they have a diverse workforce?
Mm-hmm.
Are those employees giving opportunity for growth and to go up the ladder, all that jazz.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Andrea. Well, final request from my end to both of you. Please, if you have any final words, feel free to share them. Is what kind of advice would you like to leave to these within this participation, and to the audience that are listening today, or any kind of like encouragement, right? Ruben, would you like to go, or Andrea?
I'll let Andrea go first.
I mean, I guess my advice and my encouragement would be like, keep on keeping on, and know, every single day that the work that you're doing to bring more education and awareness about clean energy to people in the communities and in the places where you work is essential, and it is a crucial piece of mitigating the disastrous effects of the climate crisis and creating a clean energy future that is achievable.
Thank you, Andrea. Ruben?
And just keep the faith, try to, get into the help the climate and volunteering, educating people. That would really create an impact, a positive impact. I'm kind of fading out here. I'm trying to say something great, but it's coming out blank. But just to keep everyone motivated, just know that we're committed, and we're committed to doing great work in every community that we step into, and know that we're there to help. And we invite anyone to volunteer as well, to be a part of something great.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. Thank you. This has been a really, really well-rounded and robust topic. I want to thank you for your time, for your insight, for sharing your experiences. As last things, right? You guys can make sure to follow Green Latinos on all their social media platforms. Andrea shared, nice information, info sheet. Ruben's work, the Greater Los Angeles office. Please also find them, follow them, support, right? Green Alternatives as a organization. We are also in social media. You can find us there. You can definitely, for sure, look out for these recording being saved and posted in our social media channels. Want to thank you again to all the participants, to our amazing Alexis Cum for providing a great interpretation service. Want to close it out with this opportunity, right, to make sure that you are following closely the next month's Grid Talk. These series have been and looking to be really, really enlightening and full of great information, and a great starting point to have these topics of relevancy if you are in a clean energy or looking to be in the clean energy industry. these are great starts as a resource, or just to keep track of all these developments. With that being said, again, my name is Luis Imbert with Girl Tennis Bay Area, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your afternoon and day. Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much, Luis, for a great
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you for setting this up.